Good evening, everyone. This is Philip and John Stallman, and Harry Durgin is here joining us. Welcome, Harry. And we would like to give you guys an evening update with all the information we've gathered here today. Give you guys a second to all join in, but we just put up a little preview on Hawaii Tracker. Hopefully that allows more of you to find our stream. So we'll see how that works. We'll probably try that format from now on and see if we can reach more of you guys. Here comes the wave of people. So welcome, guys. We are here at the Honua Opuna Hub, which was open today from 2 to 6. And we've had quite a bit of a decrease in the traffic coming through here, I gotta say. Not as many people today as there were in previous weeks, which is good that people are able to kind of be getting into their new routine. But there are people who are still coming and are still needing assistance, especially because they may not be able to cover, the cost of rent and food potentially when they're living in a place that they've now been forced to pay rent, where before they were living in a rent-free situation. So that's kind of, as people who are still in that kind of need. We have heard within the last week that the Pahoa shelter is going to be closing down in a few weeks from now, maybe 3 weeks or so. I forget the exact date. So we have some concerns about that as well, but we will keep abreast of all that. And, of course, we're missing our leader, Ikaika, who has been traveling, but he'll be back this coming week, and he's the guy who will make some waves, I'm sure, back in the Puna area when he's back to do his magic. So yeah, looks like we got our audience coming in here. So how should we do it? How do you want to start?
Tilt.
Start with the tilt?
Start with tilt.
Alright, guys, so let's start with the tilt. The thing that's nope, that's not the tilt. Just a second, guys. Let's go through our tilt. Alright. Alright, so yeah, before we go, we have a note from Mark Hinshaw. Thanks, Mark, that we noticed that as well, that there was a meeting that Kyle Anderson put out yesterday from Menlo Park, the USGS, with a Q&A session. We haven't had a chance to really go through it in detail yet, but we will. But the one report that he's putting out is the fact that, USGS has said that their 30-day countdown actually begins on the 25th of August. Is that correct? Because that's the last day they saw activity, glow, and spatter with an event. So we'll give you guys an update on that aspect of what we saw tonight as well, but we're going to start here with the tilt. And just to start off, one thing to point out, since yesterday, we have now changed our tilt station. We were get some focus, yeah, there we go. We were looking at the Uekahuna station, and now we're looking at SMC. I'm not sure what SMC stands for. Does anyone happen to know? Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on SMC right now, but anyways, it's a station in the South Caldera. So we basically have the signal from the last couple of days here, which is not showing a whole lot of variation. You can look at the scale on the left, and there we go. That's looking at a scale from +2 to -2, and the whole range of the decrease is about 1 microradian from left to right across this plot. That's well within the range of any effects that we could have from rain, for example, or it's really kind of hard to draw anything conclusive from that. There's a nice, interesting little spike here on the right from about 3 p.m. today, and let me just kind of quickly switch over to our earthquakes map and give it a quick reload in case something happened, but this is showing only 3 earthquakes on this plot for the last day, and they're all up here in the Caldera area. And of those 3, we can look at our list over here. We have that 2.4 right there in the middle, minus 0.3 kilometers, so that's basically above sea level, or really near the surface. In the area kind of at the base of the collapse rubble as we imagine it, about 300 meters. So I'm sorry, 700 meters down below the top of the volcano. That's about more or less where that is. The other 2 are a little bit deeper. But those are all essentially caldera adjustment earthquakes. We haven't seen that kind of spike on our tilt meter in a little while, so that is something to keep an eye on. that we are having, a collapse that's actually showing as a spike. The last time we saw that was when we were having our big collapse events, right? So that's interesting, interesting thing, yeah. Would you like to comment on that, John?
No, I'm absorbing a lot of this right now too. So do we think that lined up with any of those earthquakes that were detected or recorded today?
It's hard to really say because I don't see, it's hard to, if I look at the plot real close here, I can see that we have a 12 o'clock and a 6 p.m. and it looks like it's pretty close to halfway, which makes it like 3 p.m. But if we look at our earthquakes, and we actually have, if you notice, one was at 3 o'clock exactly, and one was at 3:30 exactly. The one at 3 o'clock exactly was at 2.4, so that's the one I'm going to go with. Closest to the surface, biggest magnitude, seems the most likely culprit for that signal. And thanks, Dane. SMC is summer camp. That's on the south side. That's the spot that was kind of around from the Devastation Trail area, right?
Oh, okay.
Where the old summer camp used to stand. That's the YMCA camp before the Kīlauea eruption, buried it all in cinder.
Okay.
That's a story for a different day, though.
Yep, I know that one.
So back to our tilt, yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say I know the the tilt meter, not the summer camp.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've gone looking for that place before in the middle of the cinder, but it's not exactly easy to find exactly where it was. Anyways, so what we have now of great curiosity is our plot at the East Rift Zone for the past 2 days. The signal from Pu'o'o here is showing actually on this plot, starting off at minus 0.5 on the left-hand side and ending up at about positive 0.5 on the right-hand side. But as soon as we saw this, John looked at it and said, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. This wasn't how it looked yesterday. So we did a little more investigating, and you can kind of see that. Let me just kind of switch to the past week plot here, so you guys can see during the past week, even the green line that corresponds to Pu'o'o across this plot is actually shown to be rising all the way. Yeah, so that's different from what we've seen recently. So I actually have pulled up the Pu'o'o tilt plot for the past month, also from USGS. Let's just reload this so you guys can see it actually is live still too. And you guys can see here at the right end, we have almost till the 1st of September, in a few hours here will be the right. And you can see on this month-long plot, we are not seeing any increase in the tilt over the last week or so, right? So what we're seeing is that there's something wrong with the display, and we basically cannot trust the display that we're seeing here on the main web page as showing the tilt going up. That seems the most convincing thing. We're not sure what's going on there. It seems like it could be a calibration issue, but without going into too much detail, we just can tell you guys that it doesn't appear to be reliable at this time to look at that Pu'o'o tilt, and the fact that the thing is rising does not convince us at all that there is any magma going into the area right now. So that's a little bit about that. Any comment that you would like to make, John, or?
I'm still just considering it. I think, at this time we need to be more sure of that display more than treat it as if it's giving us the real geophysical data we're trying to figure out. So it's another one of those things. It's so complicated to take all of these data sources and then review. And so this is most likely an instrument calibration sort of issue, and the way it's displayed makes sense to me. So it was really confusing to see at first, and the only explanation for that sort of change has to do with the way it's been calibrated or displayed. And so
yeah, Harry, give us some
thoughts. Yeah, I was saying, boy, I could make a mistake like that. I can think of a million places where along the way a parameter needs to be updated, so we don't know what's causing it. It's basically like we don't have a graph for right now. Pretend there's no green line.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. Yeah. Well said.
All right.
So yeah, that's the little bit of tilt that we have. The one kind of earthquake today maybe being the biggest clear signal of something that's going on over there. What else can we? Let's turn the camera around again here, and we haven't discussed this month-long plot, but you can kind of see that we are essentially baselined at the rift, especially. I don't know if you guys can see that green line in there. A little bit out of focus there. Whoops. It's supposed to focus there. Okay, there we go. So I'm missing my pointers. I'll get out my pointers here. But we also have, now that we've switched stations, just to remind you guys, the blue line, the Summit station is now the new station, not the Kīlauea station, but the summer camp station. So it is showing a signal that we've been kind of looking at for a few days, and we're not quite clear because we have, you guys see that little drop right in there. I can't find a pointer quite yet. But right there, it's about a maybe 20 microradian drop across that. You know, each one of those little boxes is 20 microradians high. So we're not quite sure what that is. You know, that kind of, the tail end of it, the right side of that plot, corresponds to the funny tilt signal we see down here, 25th as well. So 25th turning into 26th kind of overnight. So we kind of wonder if those things are related. You know, my idea of how this could work is that as we've described in our previous broadcast, that this GPS signal is actually showing a wiggling of the loose blocks of ground with maybe some kind of gas escape. It's really hard to kind of verify that. You know, we don't have any gas measurements during that particular interval to say, oh yeah, that we're totally right or totally wrong about that. Or it is more evidence supporting it or against or what have you. Oh, look, here's my pilot course.
Ah, nice.
But that's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on. You know, we've considered that it possibly could be some kind of range signal as well, but the scale of it and the timing seems a little off to me, but that's something we're keeping an eye on, and we'll let you guys know as soon as we have any more information on that. But the one clear thing is that it's not magma coming into the volcano, which is what we're all kind of looking and anticipating and trying to figure out when that's going to happen and how that might affect the day-to-day life of people down here in Puna. So that seems fairly clear, but beyond that, we're not quite sure yet what's going on. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's like we hopefully will get a chance to maybe talk to someone at the town meeting from USGS again, like, hey, what's up with that particular instrument? Do you know anything? And they might have just a very matter-of-fact solution. Oh yeah, we needed to do this, and while we were doing that, the data was skewed. And so it's a lot of times, you know, there's some detail that we just can't get through the internet, but it's well understood for the USGS who are putting out this information, and it's just kind of one of those times where we have to wait and see if we can get another verification of what might have changed before we can really trust.
Hard for me to wrap my head around how slow that signal is. That's
It's
like
really
12 hours, right?
I think longer even, yeah? Let's check it out again. I would say it's
The GPS signal?
the GPS signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it appears to be here. I'll turn the camera around so you guys can see as well. Looking at the plots of the day.
When I see graphs like that in the world, they're not usually on a 12-hour range.
Right. Someone mentioned it looks almost
That's
like a...
EKG.
Really
Yeah, like an
anomalous, isn't it?
So is this just like maybe a couple hours before midnight till a little bit past midday? And maybe it is, you know, 14 hours-ish or something like that, yeah. But it is a pretty slow thing, yeah. So that's really impressive. And that's why I kind of discount it as... And you know, one other thing I haven't mentioned, I should point out as well, is the magnitude of this thing, right? If you look at the scale here, the top of this plot is 1 meter, and the bottom is 1 meter the opposite way. So we're actually, you know, we're having something in the order of 1.5 meters of displacement. It's going back to where it was before, but it actually is moving up and down about 1.5 meters, which is also really shocking in a way, right? Striking, and you know, it's a big magnitude to...
Yeah, it's a hard thing to interpret because one thing that's been pointed out is that if we had that much movement on GPS, then it stands to reason that we should have seen a huge signal on the tilt meters associated with that, which we don't really have, right? So,
What's the closest tilt meter?
Well, right now it's that's that summer camp one.
How many miles away?
Yeah, it's probably about, well, let's see, between 1 and 2 miles.
yeah,
away.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Between 1 and 2 miles, somewhere in that range. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for 1.5 meter movement, you would expect to see it within a couple miles.
Yeah.
So I like your idea, John, that it's some kind of instrumentation anomaly.
It may be. We've been considering how it might be real data, real ground movement, and so we're still puzzling about that, and maybe we'll get some other clue that just someone at USGS will be like, oh yeah, that was this thing, and that'll be like, oh, that makes total sense. So but it's something that we just kind of puzzle about and try and think of ways that it it could be an actual movement, and ways that it might have to do with the instrument. So we're not really ruling either thing out at this moment.
Yeah, the weird thing is, that instrument thing happened overnight, right? So it wasn't like something related to the daytime, whatever it was. It was something that happened overnight. So it's not like someone was physically standing there at the instrument, probably fiddling with the wires or anything, because it was the middle of the night.
For 14 hours?
Well, I mean, maybe maybe during a day, we sent out some volunteers unqualified like myself. Maybe it might take me that long. I don't know. But
Also, look how smooth the movement is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on
really
the graph.
is, yeah.
I mean, that looks organic.
That's why we've been persuaded that it might be real data. Also, it's appearing on 3 different instruments.
Yeah.
And so it's quite curious. So either some instrument issue is affecting all 3 instruments in a similar way.
Over a long period of time.
Over a long period of time and in a very organic curve.
Yeah.
Or it's actually a real data, and if that is the true record of the ground movement, then that is a really big movement, and it's a mysterious movement because it goes up and down and back to its level again, and so it's very curious, very curious.
Well, okay, so let's just break down a little bit. So this one is vertical; it does go up and down and back to its level again. This one down here is actually a north component, so it's going north and south, back and forth. Yeah. And then this other one that's actually closer to the edge of the caldera, perhaps. I don't know, Byron's Ledge, right? So it's a little bit. This one's just going mostly up and then down with a slight rebound at the bottom there.
Oh, wow.
So that one's slightly different there too, right?
It is different.
So between the fact that we have multiple stations, between the amplitude and the duration, I personally believe it's a real signal. I kind of feel like we haven't seen something like this before, possibly because we haven't had this kind of caldera configuration before, right? I've kind of described how maybe we have that station is sitting on a fault-bounded block with cracks like on all sides of it, and then that particular rock can actually be pushed up and down without affecting the rock that's next to it where the tilt meter actually is. So then you can actually move that piece of rock up and down without tilting the ground next to it. Now you got to have some fairly easy without, the slipping can't really catch. It has to be a fairly, I won't call it lubricated because I'm not sure if there's any lubrication in there per se, but there has to be the crack. Has to be low friction, for that to be able to happen. So, but that's kind of an out there idea also, because we have never seen something like this before. But then again, we've never seen a caldera that's cracked before either, with tilt meters on the ground. So, I mean,
I think it's pretty brilliant, to even just have a working hypothesis for us to go with right now, because I think it's absolutely true that whatever surface these instruments is on, that the caldera is so fractured now. It went through such a terrific movement that it could be easy for large blocks to move in ways we haven't seen them move in the past because of the events that we've just gone through. So there's a lot of things to puzzle about there, but I think your explanation is totally a feasible one. It's just surprising that it's such an extreme movement. That's a lot of movement. So
right.
All right, so here's another working hypothesis, and you guys can shoot it down. It's over such a long period, 14 hours. That really looks like it's sitting on top of something liquid.
Yeah.
Could it be on a reservoir of something liquid?
Yes. We've discussed this a couple times now. The way that it takes days for it to build up, it could be actually gas pressure under the kind of pressures that might exist down there. Gas moving through the system behaves like a hydraulic fluid. So it could still be gas migrating through the system that's able to move the rock because it's pressurized. Or even the smallest amount of lava underneath all of that collapsed rubble would still have the hydraulic power to move those blocks. So there could be a very small amount of fluid, or it also could be oscillations in gas migrating through the system that give it that kind of hydraulic force. So we've been thinking of those things.
If it was movement oriented, wouldn't we also see tremors in the seismographs?
We could if the seismograph hadn't been struck by lightning. We could see it.
Our seismograph was struck by lightning.
So that would be a good thing to check, but we don't have that information.
Science.
Possibly we can pull out the data from that interval. Maybe it was before the lightning strike actually, but I don't have it handy right now to look at. One thing that we discussed as well, also just kind of bring up, gas is a fluid, right? So it's a matter of we're talking about fluid gas or fluid magma, we'll say, right? And what I've been putting out is that the fact that we see our GPS signal return to its original pre-signal location indicates that whatever is pushing it up is not staying and not getting wedged in there. It's not filling that space where the block can't replace itself to where it originally started.
Right.
That's a good point.
And that leads me to believe it's more fluid gas than fluid magma.
Okay.
And that's what I've been going with because I have nothing better to...
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense because if it was fluid magma lifting a block and getting under there, it's really hard to remove all of that liquid again.
It always freezes against the walls.
Whatever it touches,
core,
it would change something about the rest of that signal.
There should be an offset afterwards.
Yeah, an offset, yeah. And we're not seeing that, so it's mysterious. But I like Philip's analysis of it. It's the best thing that we've got going right now.
It could be totally wrong. We don't have all the data, that's
what
makes the most sense.
And we get a working idea about it, and then we can test that idea, and that's how we do this.
That's the GPS and tilt summary there. Let's see what else I can show you guys as far as that. Your plot of the distance across the caldera is still looking stabilized. We still can't really resolve this last little pixel, whether it's what's really going on there. Even though it appears like it might have stepped up right here, it seems like it's been fairly steady for a while, so I don't see anything else changing there that's obvious at this point. Looking at our kind of back to our macro analyzing of our signals, here's our Kīlauea tilt meter, and we're almost to the point where we're going to lose this big spike and actually get some resolution in this data here very, very soon. For now, we're forced to zoom way in and see what's going on here. There's actually two components. The green component is actually still deflating by the looks of it. The blue one might have some slight wiggle. It's hard to see what's going on there. So we'll look forward to the plot tomorrow, probably, where we maybe can get more resolution on that and see what's going on. It may well be that this is just another range signal. We have to kind of see what the amplitude and the scale really is once we have this thing blown up. It's hard to tell when a thing is actually showing 10 microradians up and down each dotted line. So we're keeping our eye on that as well. Looking at our seismograph of that same area, we can see we still have occasional bands of tremor coming out, maybe a little bit more gas, a little bit less gas. That's kind of how it worked at Kīlauea when that was the case. And perhaps we can show you some evidence of that happening on the video or the sequence of images that Harry took tonight to try to figure out what's happening down at the Fissure. So we'll come back to this as well. Something you want to point out?
Yeah, is that the kind of signal that we would think would be actual magma transporting, or are we still going to think that's more gas?
Well, so
more significant.
It is more significant that we are seeing these, yeah. So thanks for pointing that out. I don't think once again we can distinguish between what kind of fluid it is.
Yeah.
But the fact that we are having some of these short bursts, is a little bit different than the pattern we've seen recently. Absolutely. Let's go to the top of here and just compare against the top how we maybe started seeing them yesterday. This is a 48-hour plot, so maybe some of these bursts started happening yesterday.
Yeah, but I can remember a few days ago we had a similar signal, but there were fewer of them, and they were longer and more scattered. So it's just interesting.
So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. There does seem to be more evidence of this kind of gas bursting. And the cause of that, maybe we don't really know, but that's something to keep an eye on for sure as well. You have any other thing you want to add, Perry, about that? No? All right, well, so we'll keep going. Next, we will show you guys, let's show you guys first the lava cam, which is not showing a whole lot of anything right now on the web, but we actually went up there in person, and well, I should say Harry took some long exposure photographs, and we can show those to you guys. So let me pull it up here, just a second.
It was quite an adventure.
Yeah, and this was something that, well, why don't you describe our adventure, you guys, a little bit, scientifically perhaps.
Well, we had noticed in the past 2 days or more, some people have noticed there was a glow showing up in the webcam. It appeared to be a little bit reddish, But the first thing all of us who know the webcam realize that, well, that's not precisely where Fissure 8 is, so the glow is probably coming from somewhere else. And so that was the goal initially, was to see where the glow was coming from. And at that point, we were all assuming it was coming from some sort of man-made source. You want to take it away from there?
It wasn't.
But I don't think any of us really expected what we ended up finding. We were all heading down there so that we could show that the glow on the webcam was not Fissure 8. That was our goal.
All right, let's show you guys what we actually found. Right, so Harry took a series of long exposure images, and he played them on his camera, and I videoed it, so I apologize if it's a little low resolution. I believe Harry will post these later on in high resolution for you guys to check out. But let's show you guys a short little sequence of glow from Fissure 8, right, with some gas bursts that seem to be occurring as well, right? It's a pretty short video, so let me start it over. So this is not visible on a lava cam. This took a better camera, right, with a longer exposure to actually see this effect. So it's still glowing. It's not visible to the naked eye. It's probably not visible in the daytime, but with that camera, we're able to see it.
Well, we're seeing it on the lava cam, so that means if we weren't seeing it on the lava cam tonight, then when we did see it on the lava cam, it was even brighter than what we saw tonight.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Well, the other detail is that on the lava cam, as you pointed out, there was more clouds, and when there's clouds, it catches more of the light, right? So
yeah, it would bounce off
and reflect more of the light back to us, so it might have just been more noticeable the cloudy night. Is that right? Or
that's possible. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, no, that's a good point. We saw nothing in the lava cam tonight,
right?
And we were looking at pretty bright glow with my fancy camera,
right?
So if the lava cam was picking up something the other nights, it was probably brighter.
Right.
That'd be my guess. Can't say for sure, but there you go. But the cloud theory would explain why the light wasn't over Fissure 8.
Yeah.
If it was bouncing off a cloud that was further to the left, then it would make it seem like the light was coming from the left.
Right.
Yeah.
So something else to keep an eye on, and
yeah,
we will keep checking on that. So it's not really clear like what the definition of how long a fissure is glowing that USGS is going to use. If does it count it? Is it glowing with the naked eye? Is it glowing on the webcams or infrared cams? Do they have a thermal camera where they actually have a particular threshold of temperature? Does a long exposure camera count? So we'll have to see how.
Well, and that wasn't a thermal camera. That's visible spectrum.
Really nice
Thank you. Yeah. I'm just trying to clarify what they're not going to be using. Most likely, they're not using our camera to make their judgments. That's why I'm wondering what kind of cameras they have and what they might be using as far as their threshold for.
And here's the other thing. In their reports, the last time that they saw incandescence within the Fissure 8 was on the 26th Sunday, and then it disappeared afterward. By the webcam that we noticed, and now we can confirm that glow must have been coming from the fissure. That means that this glow has been appearing for 3, maybe 4 days, and in the USGS report they've said no incandescence, and so we're inferring probably their overflights have been during the day, and if it's a very small puddle of lava, even some crust might completely mask any red glow in the daylight, and without Harry's effort and fancy camera, it's not readily visible by people in the area around it. So, but this can indicate that maybe it's actually, since the last visible lava on the 26th, not a lot of time passed before this glow appeared.
Okay, but hold on, let me back up a little bit, because glow doesn't mean lava necessarily.
No.
Because we all seen rocks in our fireplaces that glow just from the actual heat. I think I heard something like 500 Celsius, 600 Celsius is about how.
Push back against that. The hot rock theory would imply more of a black body radiation model.
Yeah.
And we saw fluctuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did see fluctuations.
And that implies some level of turbulence?
Yeah. Black body radiation doesn't fluctuate.
Yeah, but so we also saw gas bursts, right? So it's likely that that's all, the most likely explanation is there's pistoning deep within the conduit out of sight, right? And you know, the gas is, because the other thing that happens is when that gas burst comes out, it makes it more, the light reflects on it more, right? It's easier to see. So some combination of it's becoming brighter when more gas is coming out at the same time. So more lava is exposed and the gas is coming out when it's brighter at the same time. That's usually a pistoning kind of pattern.
It's just very surprising to me that they wouldn't have been able to notice any of the remnants of spatter from a recent gas pistoning event are in there. Because if you've tuned in before, gas pistoning, you know, is the gas-rich lava is coming up, releasing gas, releasing heat, and the cooler lava is draining back down, and it does that over and over again, maybe sporadically, maybe once a day. I forget where I was going with that, but anyway, it just makes, I would think that in the overflights they might see some of the products of any of the spattering gas pistoning within the vent, but apparently they haven't noticed them, so.
I think that doesn't really change our, you know, our observations and prognosis. The lava is still very close to the surface.
Very close.
It's still eruptible in a sense where there's enough gas to be causing this kind of at least pistoning effect. But we don't see, at least based on USGS reports, measurements of increased fresh gas from fresh hot magma.
Yeah.
And we also don't see any other signals like, you know, we showed you guys a little bit of tremor. The tremor is a little bit more than we've seen in recent days. So if that pattern kind of increases more and more and more, then we'd have to conclude that lava is coming closer to the surface.
Closer, yeah.
Yeah.
And they included in the report that they don't have much data or indication that of contraction or expansion of the dike of the intrusion area.
That's right. Yeah, that was in today's report. Yeah.
There hasn't been a discernible change in the lava, how far it is from the surface. So
right, it's not coming out, but it's also not backing off, right? Yeah. And you know that could be for, you know, various reasons. You know, one of which might be that there's no supply coming into it, or you know that it's still adjusting in some way where it's not reaching Fissure 8, right? So
pondering.
The story continues. Yeah. So let me show you guys that one more time because I'm sure that that's going to be a clear point of interest for you guys. Let's see if I can get a little more focus. It's a little bit out of focus just from the video I took, but you guys can see that a couple more times. You guys can see from the stars that these were clearly long exposures, and we'll go check the lava cam again shortly, but probably we don't see that there.
Right.
All right.
And can I just say one more thing, because we've discussed this glow issue and what it all implies a few times, Philip and I, on the videos, and of course we're discussing it all the time otherwise, but just that we're seeing the glow, or even if there's a little bit of spatter or lava that reappears in the bottom of Fissure 8, that can still all be consistent with the lava is sitting there gurgling, cooling, and that process might continue for possibly a very long time, because we don't have a real handle on, you know, how much gas is left, how much volume of lava is down there to cool, and so this could continue for some time and still mean that the lava is simply cooling in that dike system, even though it's not very far from the surface. We'll have to wait for another level of signals, like, for example, most importantly, more gas, before we can see if this system is being fed fresh gas, fresh magma, fresh heat. Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
For me? The lava that was sitting in 8, when the eruption stopped, what's the temperature differential of that lava to how much it has to cool to freeze?
Well, it freezes to stone at actually a range of temperatures, right, Phil? It's not always precisely an exact temperature.
It varies wildly with the amount of dissolved water. And that's what makes the biggest difference.
Is there going to be less and less water the longer it sits there? It's bound chemically?
Yeah, well, so usually the water is dissolved in the magma at depth, and that's the water content that we're discussing. But what I can tell you is that the one data point that we have of Kīlauea, when they were drilling through the cooling lava lake and looking for where the lava was still liquid, they found that to be at about, I want to say it was like 1125 Celsius, something like that. So it was actually fairly high temperature because the range, when you add water, the temperatures drop and drop and drop and drop as far as the actual
what temperature
freezing.
is the magma in when it was coming out?
Something like 1200.
Oh,
So
real close. There wasn't
not
much difference at all.
It's not that, yeah.
So it was right almost at the freezing point.
It's always right
It's
at the
pretty
freezing
close
point.
to the exactly. Yeah.
It's right on the verge of freezing.
So it loses 100 degrees and it freezes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why we often say it's kind of a race. It's a race of like how far it can go before it freezes almost all the time. And that's kind of what makes this 3-month pouring out full of this giant flux of magma so much more impressive, right? Because the crust wasn't forming on a channel surface, and where it was, but then it got rafted and broken away, and it didn't was able to kind of persist as an open channel for so long. That's what was one of the more impressive things to me.
Yeah.
Given how easily it wants to freeze all the time.
Yeah, it's incredible to see that surface of lava not crusting over. That just shows you what a powerful, immense amount of lava it was.
True all over the world?
For this kind of lava, yeah.
Yeah, but
okay.
But there are lots of different kinds of lava, and they all kind of vary depending on the chemistry, and but the water content is a huge thing, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to mention also is it's kind of come up in the questions we've had today. When eruption ends, the lava doesn't go away; it always sits there in a rift. Like that's always how it ends. So if this were to be the end of it, this is likely how it goes. We don't know that it's the end because we have no indication of, for example, pressure going to the summit and not reaching the rift zone.
Right.
That would be kind of something that would be more convincing, at least temporarily. But no matter what, the lava always stays in the rift. The magma, maybe, yeah. So like for example, we've talked about how this eruption began erupting 55 lava. 55 might have been erupting 24 lava. So the lava has just been in there the entire time, right?
Yeah.
Even under Kapoho, which did not erupt through Fissure this time, there's lava underneath there still from 1960, right? And possibly offshore, off of the Puna Ridge, off of Cape Kumakahi underwater. We're not sure when that last erupted, but there's definitely lava in that part of the rift zone also. It's part of the rift zone. And that's what makes it the rift zone.
That's
so
pretty amazing.
It never ends empty, basically, is what I'm saying. It always ends with lava in there, so just the fact that there's lava in there in itself is not conclusive that it's either not ending or anything
and
like
it's
that,
just that there's that one part of the puzzle is where if we assume that there is lava or magma still entering the volcano from depth, then where is that going right now? And that's why we're in this uncomfortable limbo stage where we're not getting any signals of the magma going anywhere. And so if we had a clearer signal like, oh, it seems to be reinflating at the summit, then we could start to infer that, well, that means it's not feeding down into the rift anymore. But we're just in that uncomfortable stage that until we have a more conclusive signal, yes or no, here or there, then, we have to keep trying to consider the small amount of information that we really do have. But I think it's valuable for people, at least mentally, to go back when they're seeing the glow again in the fissure. They're just going to be sharing these videos to remember that this can all still be consistent with the cool down process for what's already happened. It's not healthy. It might give you a lot of anxiety to immediately jump to the conclusion that, oh, it's a pause, it's going to restart, because we don't have that information either, yeah? And what we are seeing can still be explained as part of the cooling process, because the lava is always in the rift, and it takes a long time for it to cool down if it's not exposed to air and releasing that heat. So this reappearing glow it can all be a symptom of it releasing that heat as it cools and releasing some gas as it does so.
Yeah, and just one clarification. I saw a comment come up. When we're saying freezing, we mean, hardening, becoming solid.
Stone. Yeah.
It's it's switching from liquid to solid, but it's happening at a very high temperature. So maybe the word freezing, is just it's technically what's happening, but it gives you the idea that maybe it's cold. That's not the case. It's just solid.
Yeah, it's just solid. I've heard a lot of people refer to dried lava And, you know, technically we say it's cooled and solidified to stone. But if you want to say dried lava, that's fine.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, we get it. We understand what you mean. And technically lava is wet.
Yeah.
Actually, it wets. It's a fluid, but
yeah.
that's
So
a
actually,
technical thing.
so in geology, technically, that's water content. Wet lava and dry lava is actually how much water.
Oh.
So that's a whole different thing, but we're not at that level of our discussion. So you guys can say dried, and we don't care.
Yeah, we'll get you. We'll get you.
But yeah, if you go talk to a petrologist and you say something like wet lava, then you're talking about the water content instead of the magma, actually.
Interesting.
So, yeah, we've discussed some of the magma. We'll talk theory forever if we don't cut ourselves off. So we better kind of do more of that later on.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a lot to talk about.
It was just an interesting evening. It was not what we were expecting. We were basically all headed out on the fun little field trip to go and determine what the glow was coming from so that no one would worry about the fissure, and then Harry was able to reveal that in fact it was the fissure glowing.
Right.
So that's surprising for what we wanted to hear, but again, it can still be consistent with it cooling down. We don't have other information to conclusively suggest anything else.
Yeah, and you know, I keep coming back to the gas, especially, right? You know, no fresh gas means no fresh lava.
gas. Yeah.
No tremor, although maybe we can start to see some change in tremor a little bit. But
that's
you know,
interesting as well. But we've always got to get those multiple lines of evidence.
Yeah. And it's still not quite enough tremor. You know, I was describing in Harry, like if you can still see the white lines between those blue lines, then like that's not enough tremor to be consistent of like a huge amount of lava coming up to the surface. Maybe it's some gas carrying lava, sure. You know, it's some spattering kind of thing. But you know, I need to see more tremor than that still.
Yeah.
And besides that, you know, it'd be nice if we saw some kind of deformation, like a tilt, but maybe that's something we won't see because we haven't seen any change in tilt so far, and you know, for whatever reason, maybe that won't change. We may not see actual discrete earthquakes that show up on a map, even though the tremor we do see. And there's still no signal at the summit, which is all kind of interesting.
Very interesting. So, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Interesting is the word.
So yeah, we'll turn the camera around again and show you guys a little bit more of what we discovered. Since we got Harry with us, we're gonna use his expertise. Here's expertise. Yeah. So here is the traffic cam over the plates on 130, and it's showing fairly typical readings as far as the average and max and min. Maybe slightly cooler than we've seen before, as that says 109, I believe, right? It's hard to see, hard to even read that. But let's scroll down and look at the graph we have of the temperatures that, what happened? That Harry has provided for us. Hold on a second, I decided to not display right when we need it. Oh, there we go. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to turn over to you, Harry, to talk about what's different about this compared to when you've seen it before.
Oh, okay. Well, we used to see signals that were much larger like this. And so these signals that would come and go would go up 100 degrees and would be larger. And you couldn't see the difference from day and night. But now there's so little of this larger signal that it's real easy to pick out when it gets heated in the afternoon each day. And so this signal is becoming the stronger signal, and the background signal of whatever was happening that was causing changes in temperature seems to be abating with time. It looks like less activity, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that's pretty convincing, I think, right? We see the actual pattern of the heat of the day, night, obviously, for the peaks and the troughs. And we don't see any other signal, really. That's what it comes down to.
Not much, yeah.
So that's interesting as well. We'll kind of keep an eye on that as well, because that's another thing that could indicate to us if fresh magma is moving from the summit through the rift zone, for example. We would expect some kind of change, right? Whether it's increased gas, increased temperatures of the surface, more steam, something, anything. We'll take any kind of signal. So that's what we got here. I see some people asking about the glow. So we did show some images of the glow earlier from long exposure, but if you guys look at a night sky, it's pitch black out there. I won't even bother putting the camera over there. It's totally pitch black, even on a lava cam. I'll show you guys a lava cam, which is a lot closer than we are. is just showing pitch black. So nothing to see there. So
That's probably because it's a cloudless night and we don't have something for the glow to bounce off of.
yeah, good point. Good point. It is a clear, cloudless night. So I believe that I've covered all the volcanic signals here. If I'm missing something, you guys let me know.
Are there
No,
any
nothing.
questions? You want to take some questions?
Yeah, we can take some questions. We got a little bit of community news to talk about as well, right? So we can do that maybe next. Today is the day that it was announced that at least 2 of the barricades have come down.
Oh yeah.
The one down by Kīlauea, close to Mackenzie Park, and the one at Papaya Farms Road, kind of close to Cinderland. Now, so those areas have been opened up. The barricade at Leilani subdivision entrance from 1:30 is still there and being manned. There's one at the Y down here as well, being manned as well. But we did notice that they're being manned by different staff, yeah? So we noticed that we actually have no longer military and police presence at those roadblocks. We have instead presumably county hired security, right?
Pretty pleasant people.
Yeah, pleasant
Nice
people.
guys.
Yeah, nice guys. Yeah, shout out to you guys. Yeah,
Although
we're gonna watch, so
I gotta say, I've gone through the Y intersection for the last months and seen people from the military and from police, and everybody's been so nice the whole time. I got nothing but compliments.
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah,
Awesome to hear.
it's awesome to see it.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Also, it was nice to know that I didn't have to worry about security with the cam.
all right.
So it was great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure people who have residences back there are feeling the same way about their residences.
Yes,
and
they are.
that's exactly why they're still there.
That's good.
So yeah, shout out to you guys over at the checkpoints, and we're still waiting to see what evolves with the other ones beyond that. Now, along with the barricades coming down, it actually came as a result of it's actually down
6 tonight.
down already. Yeah. So yeah, so you can go home without. You can go cut your grass. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Listen to the joy here. So there was that was part of a emergency proclamation that the mayor signed today, which also puts out a new restriction of people having to stay 50 yards away from the lava flow, even old, dried up, hardened, solid flow, however you want to call it. So that's been a little bit contentious today for people discussing this on social media, because there are some clear issues, right? I mean, imagine if the flow is at the edge of your property and it's 50 yards wide, and now you can't go on your property at all because of this rule that's suddenly been implemented today. We can totally understand where they're coming from, why they want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, the flow field is dangerous, especially if it rains. We talked about the other night. It's just so hard for those reasons. There are people who live right alongside it. That's where their property is. How are they going to be that far away from it? But I can understand that they're trying to regulate the whole area on the chance of it being dangerous, on the chance of maybe it's still paused. But I can definitely appreciate just intense frustration coming from that whole idea.
If people are walking over the old lava field, I mean, not old, this recent lava flow, there's no way for them to know where property lines are. They're going to be walking all over people's private property.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah, this is true.
So that may be is just essentially like a buffer zone that allows them to enforce better. Like if you're on a flow, then you're clearly in violation. If you're off the flow, then okay, now we have some.
The property thing is a little deeper discussion.
Yeah, would you like to join a discussion? You have a platform right here if you want it.
Not really.
All right.
Maybe
Well,
a
so
different time.
I don't really like what I got.
we can just let it be said that there is still a lot of discontent and a lot of frustration. People are on one hand wanting to get back to their property, on the other hand wanting that area to be protected against any kind of crime, which has also been a persistent theme in the discussions.
Technically, it's kind kind of taken away. Technically, the property is kind of...
Technically, your property is kind of taken away, yeah. Yeah, technically there are places where you're not allowed to go on your property, and you might consider that to be not fair or possibly not legal, but, you know, I have no legal opinion in the matter since I'm not a lawyer. I just can understand people's frustrations for sure.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. I believe this is just another one of these steps. We've been talking about how there's a whole series of steps that the county is likely to take to kind of return to some previous state of operation, right? You know, and like, you know, there's a whole cascade of steps it takes, and, you know, taking down 4 roadblocks is certainly a step in the right direction, I'd say, even though we're not, maybe it's not as big a step as everyone would like it to be.
Yeah.
So
I was just thinking, you know, in terms of what we're reporting tonight, that we have been able to confirm there is some glow in the fissure. And Phil mentioned already that this is one of the criteria that USGS uses for determining this 30-day period where they're kind of buffer zone for determining if it's over. And so we'll also have to see how USGS reacts, or if they end up confirming for themselves that there's incandescence in the vent, if that'll change their idea about this 30-day countdown or not. Is something that could be an important detail, or it might not reset the clock because we don't have other signals, but we know tonight that the fissure is still glowing. How significant is that going to be for their assessment?
yeah,
It's something to watch. We have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then civil defense is a separate agency as well,
Yeah.
and how they respond to whether what the USGS says or any information they might gather independently
Yeah,
is also to be determined.
yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see for that. And that was mostly what I want to talk about as far as, you know, what's happening down in the community. But we also have reports of a report from the park that they have been continuing their assessment as well, and everything is still looking good. We have reports that the KMC is kind of mobilizing all their staff to clean up and reopen at the same time as the park. We've heard similar to about Volcano House, so I haven't heard any direct confirmation from anyone that works there directly to confirm that, although, you know, would be surprised if that was not the case based on everything that's been said so far. We've also heard that our friend Storm, you know, with Kīlauea Eco Guides, reported that his contacts show the lava tube, Nahuku lava tube in the park, is still intact. Yeah. And, you know, that's an interesting thing. You know, I've, you know, for many years talked about going through there, natural arch, different earthquakes. Big earthquakes have happened all the time. It's survived all of those. But it's not, maybe not exactly, I mean, I don't know, it's, I guess it predates the previous Caldera collapse.
It does.
But a Caldera collapse is probably as intense an event as you can go through. So I did have some doubts that it would actually, you know, this event might have been the one that could actually have caused some damage in there, just because of the frequency. I think, you know, the total count is something like 40,000 earthquakes happened, you know, over that 4-month period. Right? And of those, there are 62 5.3s or so that happened in that area.
It's a lot of
62. Shaking. Okay, so that's, you know, started off every day, and by the end it was every other day, but it was still a whole bunch of them, right? So that combined with the visitation, and we know that that their people have been in a cave before, have pried the rocks and kind of loosened things here and there. So certainly humans can affect that stability as well, right? So,
but it's lasting. Sounds like it's lasting.
But yeah, it's still there. Yeah. So
I was in the park today. I was in Kahuku doing a tour for the Friends of Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Ask for John. And Kahuku has a lot of visitation. It was beautiful weather down there. So don't forget that Kahuku section of the park is open. There's rangers doing hikes and programs. The bookstore's there, and it's a really nice place to enjoy the park on the Mauna Loa side in Kahuku. And so I'm just really happy with the park being as open as they can and moving forward as much as they can to reopen every area as they deem it safe and feasible to do that. So it's really exciting stuff that's coming together so quickly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those guys are busting their rear ends up there.
Working hard.
Yeah, it's almost sports season, so I've been listening to the coach's motivational lingo without being politically incorrect recently, which is where that came from. So my apologies. So, I don't think I see anything else to add to our.
Can't wait to
tonight,
go to
yeah.
the park.
Me too. I miss it.
my
I
God.
want to go in the Ka'u Desert.
Are they going to let us go to Jagger?
Mauna Loa.
I know the building's
I-
damaged, but can we see the giant caldera?
I'm sure that their opening plans would naturally include figuring out the safe viewpoints to observe the crater and the caldera.
Oh my God, I can't
haven't-
wait.
I can't wait either. I just haven't heard any details about how they hope to be doing that. But obviously everyone wants to see that crater, and I'm sure a major component of their planning is where are their daily visitors going to have the chance to do that. So I'm sure they're working it out. So.
Yeah, although I would caution you to have, to actually, I think the caldera is something that certainly you're going to let us see, but the Jagger Museum itself.
Yeah, I don't know about Jagger Museum, but somewhere they'll create, I'm sure they will create some viewpoint for the crater. I'm not sure they'll let traffic all the way towards Jagger on foot or by vehicle.
Okay.
Based
Yeah,
on
I
what
doubt
I've
it.
seen.
I doubt
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I personally doubt it'll go past KMC.
Yep, because
That's the easiest place, yeah.
we've seen a lot of photos on the trails and the road. There are cracks and broken places, and then we know that Jagger Museum is damaged. So I feel like they'll create viewpoints further to the east and not allow people there. But I don't really know.
Yeah, well, but they've stated multiple times that their master plan states clearly that those sites, the Jagger and the museum and the HBO buildings, would be damaged. They would not reoccupy them. That's clearly stated in their long-term vision.
Okay.
And it happened. Why would they change the vision that they wrote less than 3 years ago?
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so
They mentioned that at the meeting too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So when
And,
I would take
and one more thing,
Sure.
that's the spot where Jagger is. Wikahuna is actually a sacred Hawaiian site,
Oh.
and there's been, it wasn't the best place to put it in the first place, but now that we're in this situation, they may well take it out. They may
remove
deconstruct it, to restore that sacred site.
Oh, I like that.
So that's
Interesting,
the
yeah.
last part. Go ahead here. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, just surprising the impact going so close to Jagger. When I would take pictures from Jagger, it was 1.1 miles to the vent.
To the vent, right? But not to the caldera.
No, but it's the
Right.
vent that's grown to occupy the whole caldera.
Well, in a sense, right?
In a sense. I think in the beginning it was the vent growing, and that it was the void space of having that open conduit that was allowing a lot of material to move inward.
Right.
But the rest of the collapse is this pure downward motion along the pre-existing buried faults. And then as that all destabilizes and crumbles and cracks rocks, it starts to pour down and landslides and fill it in. But I think initially it had to do with the vent growing, and then it became a much different process as it got going after that.
It is unfathomable, the size.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, all right, you guys. So that's all I got.
Oh, I got to.
Thanks for including me.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for joining us. It's been awesome, yeah.
You're the hero of the night by solving our mystery in a way none of us expected. So thanks for taking us there.
Yeah. Well, all right, you guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. And we will all jointly sign off for you guys.
All right.
Stay classy, Puna.
Puna.